Quick one before we start. This episode with Mike Samuels ran just under 2 hours, so we're breaking it into 3 separate parts, same as we did with Paul. Now, if you're one of those lunatics who like to sit down and listen to a full 2-hour podcast in just one go, on the toilet, legs numb, no feeling below the knees, don't panic, I will upload the full uncut version as one episode at a slightly later date. Other than that, if you're getting something out of this show, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. Links to Mike's socials are in the show notes below. All right, other than that, let's get into it.
Hello and welcome back to the Coaches Hour podcast, a podcast dedicated in making you a better coach. You're joined as always with myself, Hym, and my co-host is Jewade Graham. You're in for a treat today because we're committing to our goal of getting more guests on this year. And today's guest was once a PT, but since shifted to writing for a living. And with only his words, he's generated over $170 million in sales for clients. This isn't the thousands of transformation stats that you see coaches make online. This guy is legit. With all that money, you'd think you'd find a better office than Starbucks. But hey, we don't judge. And today we've managed to pull him away from his usual coffee shop and to our podcast studio here in Finchley. Mike Samuels, welcome to the show.
Right. Great intro. I'm going to have to pause you right there. Mike, with them figures right.
It's a bit more than that money-wise now.
Do you know what I mean?
Close.
It was
I saw it from somewhere.
It was the best crafted intro I think I've had on a podcast, so I'm very appreciative of it.
Cool. Okay, we can carry. So, back to, hi Mike. Nice to have you here.
No, it's good to be here. Thanks, guys.
The coffee shop copywriter. So this is why.
Do you still go by that moniker now?
Yeah, I'm kind of. The word rebrand is a bit cliched, but I'm kind of in a bit of a rebrand, but I've not let that name go yet. So
I like it.
For the time being, I do like a bit of alliteration. That's kind of what's kept me stick to it.
What would the new one be then? Because would there be able to be alliteration with that?
I don't even know. I've not thought that far yet.
Okay, we'll give us the scoop, the inside scoop, if and when it does happen.
Will do.
So for anyone that doesn't quite know who you are, who is Mike Samuels, or the coffee shop copywriter?
What a question. I mean, from a sort of logistical point of view, as you said, I used to be a trainer. I got into personal training back in, I think it was 2008 that I qualified. And so I worked as a trainer from 2009 until about 2014. So a bit of time in a commercial gym in a Fitness First in London. If I'm honest, that was not my vibe. I was a very shy, anxious 19-year-old. When you're told, here's a polo shirt and some business cards, go out and speak to people on the treadmill and try and get them to pay you money for training, it's not the best career choice, really. So I then ended up moving back to my hometown of Southampton, and I thought I still want to be a trainer, but I didn't really want to be in the gym. And so I started out as a mobile personal trainer. Learned a bit of online marketing. It was actually SEO back in the day, and ended up building a relatively successful business. I was doing kind of 45, 50 sessions some weeks. Then I got into the online side of things and I realized this is cool, but actually I don't really like getting up at 4:30 every morning and working evenings, working weekends, all that kind of stuff. And then kind of quite organically got into copywriting in about 2014 as well, I think. Was sort of building my own online business with email marketing, with blogging, with that kind of stuff. I just had other coaches and trainers reach out to me and say, could you do this for me? And I was like, I don't know, probably. Would you pay me £30 for an email? And people were like, yeah, we can pay you that. And yeah, it's kind of grown from there, really. So that's the very formulaic story version. But yeah, that's kind of me, or that was my journey in a nutshell, I suppose.
Is that how you realised that you could basically write, is when other people were saying, hey?
I think so. And part of it was because I remember when I was PTing in London, I used to love reading online fitness articles. So it's when T Nation was in its heyday, and you had people like Christian Thibodeau, Tony Gentlecore, Dave Tate. They'd write just these epic pieces, and every afternoon I was there. I think the articles always dropped about 3 p.m. UK time, and I'd be there like 2:59 refreshing the screen to see who had an article today. And that was what really got me into it. So I was writing a bit anyway. I was writing for free, all that kind of stuff. And then, yeah, when I went to building my, I suppose kind of my in-person business originally, because I had to learn some SEO to do that. And then, especially when I got into the online side of things, I was still reading those guys, people like Nate Green. I think I discovered Jonathan Goodman by that point, the PTDC guy. And yeah, I just kind of been writing on the side, doing some content bits and pieces here and there. But yeah, it was when people started reaching out to me. And my first big client was a guy called Nick Cheadle, who's Aussie online coach, one of the sort of original guys. And I think when he reached out to me and said, I like what you do, could you do some stuff for me? I was like, okay, maybe this is a thing that could actually pay all right money. And yeah, that was a tipping point, I guess, really.
Cool. And just to go back ever so slightly, when you say SEO, just for anyone that doesn't understand, that search engine optimization, is that what you're speaking about?
Yes, yeah. So don't ask me about that because A, I can't remember any of it, and B, what I learned back then would absolutely not work today.
Yes.
It's
So
changed a
simplified,
lot.
it's like keywords that
Yeah.
will get you higher up a Google search,
Exactly,
for example.
yeah.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah.
That was so big before.
Yeah. Like, well, do you know what? It's still big, but it's just more challenging now. And especially with like AI, like people can do it where they're just putting into an engine rather than someone manually typing a keyword or making sure keywords are in an article or whatever. Is that what you used to do? Like keywords in an article?
You go and find an article that had a comment section and you'd write, it was supposed to be, the idea was the more valuable your comment, the more Google judged it as an actual comment, it would boost you up. But I would just go around and do things like I'd write, great post, I like these exercises too, from Mike Samuels, personal trainer, Southampton. And then we'd always try and get my link in there or a handle or whatever. And yeah, it was actually relatively easy back in the day. I actually learned it from one of my mum's friend's husbands who was a plumber, and he was a 24-hour plumber and got himself to the top of Google for emergency plumber Southampton. So he showed me how to do it. So I used to spend about an hour a day trawling the internet just for any blogs that were kind of relevant to weight loss, fitness, that kind of thing. And at first, sort of nothing happened. Then almost overnight, you went from obscurity to maybe like result 7 or 8. Did it for a couple more weeks, result number 1. And I think even until about 3 years ago, I was like result number 3 for personal trainer Southampton, even though that website's been dead for, probably 12 years at this point, 12, 13 years. Which shows kind of how easy it was and also how bad other people were at it.
But you say how easy it is, and I just want to point out, you said you was trawling for an hour a day. So you make it look easy. And this is like for people that are listening, like someone committing to an hour a day of doing something and then doing it consistently. Of course, at some point, it might seem like overnight when it happens, but it probably was months and months and months, or at least weeks and weeks and weeks of hours and hours and hours of commenting, trolling, trying and figuring out.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'd say maybe not easy then, but it was simple. There was nothing crazily difficult about doing it. You just had to, like the gym, everything seems to relate back to the gym, but you had to just show up and do the reps and you got better at it.
Yeah, because I like to point things like that out because like everyone nowadays feels like, it's easy. I expect to make 2 posts or talk to 2 people in the gym and be able to get full. And when you actually look at anyone that's successful, or at least anyone that I've spoken to, there's a background where it's not just success. There's a little bit of an engineering process of do this, then success, then everyone knows who you are. And it's like, I didn't just get here, guys. Like I actually had to do some stuff in the background.
Yeah, it's like the iceberg thing, isn't it? People see the tip of the iceberg above the surface and don't see the stuff underneath. And there's loads of cliched analogies for that, but they are cliche because they're also kind of true, I suppose.
I'm sure you had fun doing it as well, to a degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think with any business, but even back then, because I'd have been, 21, I think, it is that idea of I'm building something and this is mine, and it's you've got the satisfaction of seeing it grow, even if at first it doesn't necessarily look like it too much. Then it was. So I definitely used to be quite lazy, and I think it was suddenly trying to start a business and you go, oh, actually you can't be lazy when you're trying to start a business. I used to kid myself that I was doing really valuable work every day, but I was getting up at 8 o'clock, going to the gym, coming back home, having some food, getting on the laptop at like midday. And all of a sudden you go, actually, I need to work a bit hard on this. So it definitely gave me focus to know, right, these are the things I need to do, even if it is just commenting on other people's blogs for an hour. I think having that goal and having that process made it that bit easier for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So what was the topic of today, like this episode?
I want to run through a few topics. So the first one that we want to kind of speak to you about is something that I find very interesting is you hear a lot of the times now we get told, storytelling, and you got to tell more stories. You got to have your own personal. You got to tell this story and whatever, right? But I feel like no one really explains what storytelling is. You know, I feel it's like when I hear it the first time, I was like, "What does he want me to be like? You know, J.K. Rowling or like Roald Dahl? What stories am I telling? You know what I mean?" So I was just interested in terms of, obviously, I think a lot of copywriters and yourself have used that word quite a lot. And, you know, how would you describe like storytelling, and why is it, I guess, so important?
That's a good question. I don't know if I've ever been asked for a definition before, but to me, it's taking something objective and making it almost subjective. So you take something that happened and you tell it from a specific point of view with possibly a specific slant on it. So I'm actually doing a course at the moment that's really interesting, that one of the things we had to do last week was tell a story that on the surface is quite mundane and try and make it very compelling. Try and make it so that someone wants to keep reading through. And so I picked an incident that happened last year, which was a neighbour getting very angry at me parking outside his house. And
just happened to him.
Yeah, true, yeah.
This is your story now.
He wasn't angry though, but we can make him angry.
Must be fate. Yeah, so I took that and wrote it, and then the task this week was to tell that story from someone else's point of view. So actually, I was finishing it this morning. I told that very mundane story from the point of view of an old lady who might have been looking out of her window at the time, and telling it from her perspective of how this argument transpired. And so for me, it's thinking, what can I say about literally anything? You know, the lunch I just had, for example, or the meeting I was at last night. How can I tell that in a way that has some emotion in there, that makes people want to read on, and that has a bit of a narrative as well? Most stories, well, pretty much every story will have a beginning, a middle, and an end. There might be, you can go really into structure. So there's the typical hero's journey that's like the quest for adventure, finding the guide or the mentor, that kind of thing. Most stories will have that in it as well. But it's like, what can I add to something that to me is quite mundane that makes other people want to read it? And there's a lot of misconception with the story where I think people, if I say to a coach or a business owner, make sure your posts have story in it, they think, oh, right, so I need to go back to when I started my business and what the challenges were. And like, that's definitely a story you can tell. And I'd say to people, tell that story in your content once or twice a year in different ways. But literally anything can be a story. If you just add some emotion to it, add some, people want to know your unique perspective on stuff. And if you can bring that to it, you know, your opinion on what happened, like a bit of side detail that actually you can tell in a way that's a bit interesting, a bit weird, that's kind of how you tell a story. And so I challenge people, find the most boring thing you can and try and turn it into something that people want to read.
That's your challenge for the week, and you can report back next podcast. You can tell the story next podcast. Oh, this is it. We've got a homework. This is a homework section for the podcast now.
Would you say the intro of a story is almost like your hook then? So it's like, because you'll have a point that you're trying to make, right? Whether it's fitness, like something to do with fitness, I don't know, fat loss or whatever. And then you've got your story. So your story is the thing that kind of almost, or the start of the story almost is the thing that hooks people in to get people intrigued and interested. Is like, oh, he's not talking to me about fitness, you know, straight away, the knowledge, whatever. They're talking about something that may have happened to them or they can relate to. Is that?
I think certainly there's elements of the hook also being the introduction. The one big mistake people make a lot of the time is they think that a story always has to start at the beginning, which sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you can start a story in the middle, and because that will be the point of drama, and then you can take it back to the beginning. But think about like the best movies you've watched or the best TV shows, how they start. They'll often start in a way that's super compelling. So a partner in one of my businesses, Jamie, he likes to show people the opening scene from, I think it's The Dark Knight, where they're like mid-bank robbery, and one of the scenes just comes up from Heath Ledger from behind. He turns around and he's the Joker, and he's, before you see his face, he's holding a bank robber's mask in his hand. Then he turns around and you see the Joker face, and it's like, how could you turn that movie off after you've seen that as the intro? So there's not even like, it's not even the beginning of the story necessarily, because it's not people sitting down going, right, we're going to go and rob a bank or we're going to do this. It's picking a scene that pulls someone in. So yeah, I think hooks and stories are kind of different but kind of the same. And certainly now, I'm always hesitant to say people have short attention spans, because actually if something's interesting, we will sit down and watch it. But people are very easily distracted. So actually, if you can have a really strong hook that ties in with your story, yeah, it's a great way to get people bought in. Even if it's just a line like, I don't know, I'll put myself on the spot here, but I'd never been so embarrassed in my entire life. Very few people are going to read that and go boring and switch to the next thing. And they'll be like, okay, I'm at least going to give this story the next 10 seconds to see if it pulls me in. If you then spoil it by saying, because I fell off a trampoline at a kid's birthday party, they're like, right, I've had my payoff now, I'm leaving. But if you go into, a bit of background about how you were, I don't know, what the build-up was and that kind of thing, and you keep the drama going, that's kind of how you keep people bought in through story.
And how important, because like, that sounds like, especially for someone that's beginning that journey, like it takes a lot of time, energy and effort to become skilled at that. How important do you think it is for personal trainers, and how important would you say it was for you in your experience and your journey?
Humans always buy into narratives. It's the one thing that we know from literally hundreds of thousands of years of human behavior. And the obvious example is cave drawings, that people have gone back and found them from centuries ago, and they tell a story in themselves. So we know that humans are hardwired to enjoy stories. It's kind of how we process information. We just find it easier to process facts if they're told in story form. So I definitely think it's important. I would say that it's often not as complicated as people think. People will naturally tell stories in everyday life anyway. They just might not realize it. So when you're with a client, you're probably going to be telling them a story. You'll tell them what happened at the weekend. And if something really exciting and amazing happened to you, it's unlikely you're just going to say, oh, I don't know, I went to London the weekend and I can't think of a celebrity now, I saw Russell Crowe walking down the street. Okay, next set, off you go. Like, you're going to tell that story. You'll be like, oh, you won't believe who I saw at the weekend. Like, Russell Crowe was walking down the street and he was doing this and he was doing that. Like, you're telling a story to a client if something interesting has happened to you. So I think you do need some practice to a degree, but actually story doesn't have to be some Steven Spielberg-esque massive drama with plot twists and turns that lasts for 3 hours or whatever. It's just making a bit of an effort to think, right, well, how did I feel in that situation? What was interesting about a character in that story that I could tell? So don't just talk about, I had this interaction with my dad, for example. Talk about, my dad's always been very strict. As a kid, I remember when he would do this, when we'd be out and he'd tell me off for doing so-and-so. And anything you can do like that makes a story more interesting and engaging. And the brain wants to do that anyway, but I think sometimes we pull ourselves back because we think, oh, people don't want to read long content or they don't want to watch long content anymore. Or I'm even just a bit self-conscious of trying to put some emotion into this. And I'm far from the most outwardly emotional person going. But I would say if you can let yourself put some of your emotion into what you write, that in itself is going to lead to a better story.
Cool.
Very solid. I think a lot of the times, like even for myself, like I'm not a huge reader. And I think with how even social media and YouTube, there's a lot of video content, but even within that, there is like scripts and, there's a degree of writing that comes with it. I think a lot of people tend to, I'll say ignore that fact, but may not necessarily, I think a lot of coaches may not necessarily realize the power of, almost writing and how much, a lot of coaches will say, oh, my content's not getting views, my YouTube's not getting views, right? And a lot of that comes from, like what you're saying, the scripting is like, how are you going to capture those views? And, that Batman analogy is awesome, because that, when you said that, straight away I could imagine the whole scene. That initial scene is probably one of the best scenes out there that you can get. It's absolute cinema. And yeah, I think these are the things that will get get views, and that comes from, you know, that planning, and that planning comes from, you know, the writing. So I think it's one of those skills that perhaps a lot of coaches maybe perhaps overlook a little bit.
I think it's easy to overlook it now with, I'm sure we'll get onto it at some point, the invention of the things that do it for you with the ... the dash, and the here's the thing and whatever else it is. And I think this is where, like, even though technology is improving, I think there's a huge gap for not just personal trainers. Obviously, we're talking to personal trainers, but for anyone who can still keep that human element in a world where everyone seems to be going away from that at the ease of time or the expense of time, if that makes sense. So I think it's huge.
Yeah, there's a couple of good points there. One being that AI is logical and humans are emotional. So there's a big disconnect there. It's like AI can't magic up emotion because it can't feel. So even if you are using AI for script writing, for doing reels, for doing YouTube videos, for writing, you know, content, whatever, there still needs to be that element of you driving the ship to add the emotion into it and to kind of put the nuance in there, to put the feel. Someone described it recently to me that sort of good writing and good persuasion is kind of like jazz, as in the best jazz is not perfect. You'll go to some jazz bar in New Orleans, whatever, they're not standing there playing sheet music and following every single note and all that kind of stuff. They'll be playing missed notes, they'll be changing the beat, changing the rhythm, they'll be doing stuff you don't expect, and that's why the best jazz is the best, because they know when to break the rules. So it's kind of the same with content. And yeah, I've got more into YouTube stuff myself recently, and my first few videos I was like, well, I just talk to the camera, it's fine, it's easy. I'm not too bad at talking, I can get up and talk about stuff, I'm happy to speak. But it was so much more difficult not having any kind of script. So I now make sure that I spend some time doing some scripting, not a lot because I don't want it to be all read, but at least having notes there, because the skills might seem different. I'm going to speak to camera and do video content, or I'm going to sit down and write. But actually, there's a lot of crossover. And even if you are going to riff on a point, you kind of need to know what you're riffing through. It needs to follow at least a rough structure so that you hit those key points, whether it's the emotive stuff, the factual stuff, the beginning, middle, and end, the narratives, the character arcs, all that kind of thing. There are very few people who can just do that off the cuff and be great at it. If you can't, if you're in the 99% of people who can't, then yeah, you kind of need to write, even if you're not publishing written content, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I find even like with short form content, because it's easy with the the ahs. In long form, you can get away with it because it's a little bit longer. But in short form, them them ahs, like that's where people will be gone straight away, especially with, as we've mentioned, the attention spans that may not be there. So I speak how I normally speak, then I'll script it and I'll just remove all the nonsense and remove all the fluff, and then I'll speak it again. And normally after you've spoken it once or twice, you remember a little bit more of it anyway. So you can kind of go off the cuff a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's the thing about content as well, is that one of the tips I have for people, if they do say, I really struggle with writing, is exactly that. Well, say it, transcribe it, and then find a way to make that transcription better. If you're sat there with a blank page, you know, most people are happy to talk about a topic they know about for hours, but you tell them to write about it and they go, oh, I don't really know what to do now. How do I start this? Well, okay, tell me about it. Then let's write it down. Obviously, again, there's tools that can do that, which I can't really give an opinion on because I've not really spent any time with them. But I think if that does help you write better, I've not got anything against it, and it's probably going to make it easier if you can speak it first.
Yeah, I use a Whisper. It's called Whisper Flow.
Yeah.
It's quite decent. Because now, even like with messages, I just talk. I don't hardly type anymore, I just speak. And it's actually quite good at it. So like when I'm writing a post or writing a script, I will speak it first. Then I'll go back to it either at the same time or a little bit later, and I'll just review it and then make it.
You've got me on that as well. Right?
Yeah, are you on it now? Are you on the Apple version?
I have. There's another version which I'm not into subscriptions, right? I don't know.
Yeah, he looks for all the bargain ones.
So I found one which is like a lifetime thing, and you get like X amount of words or whatever. It's basically the same thing. It's probably not as good, but I'm like, no, I'm not paying this subscription.
I went on the subscription, like, you know, the trial one, and I was like, oh, I use it. Yeah, then the trial ended, and I was like, I can get away straight when my word's finished. And I was like, I need more words. I need more words instant. Give me the pro plan. And I don't even know how much it is. But whatever it is, it's worth it to me, to be fair. So
I think it's great for, so I have somebody that helps me in terms of my systems and stuff like that. He uses Claude Code. And when you're trying to get Claude to do stuff, it's really nice to use that as a transcription to say exactly what it is that you want. Sometimes it's really difficult to type it out.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, I can't use that because I do most of my work in coffee shops. So I think I get a few weird looks if I was all of a sudden just talking to my laptop.
literally, I'm so like less self-aware now. Because I'm used to it now. I'll talk on the, like today, but I'll lean in and I'll be like, and it picks up the whispers though, so it's really quite good at it.
I might have to try that then.
Yeah. So do you still work in coffee shops like quite often then?
Mostly, yeah, I'd say probably 80% of my work is done in coffee shops. I've tried co-working spaces. I just found I actually talk to people more, which was kind of nice, but also defeated the purpose of it. So yeah, I'll do all my calls from home, which isn't that much of my working week. And anything where I have to record a video or record a presentation, that kind of stuff gets done from home. But yeah, for the most part, I'm out in coffee shops, just trying to business expense what I can. But unfortunately, that's not a lot of it.
Drinking your body weight in coffee.
Yeah.
What's your go-to coffee?
Normally just an Americano, or iced in this weather, just because. Yeah, otherwise I get through it too quickly if I have something like if I have a milky coffee.
Yeah.
Although one thing I wouldn't want to move to America, but the one thing I miss when I'm not there is their cold brew. Like they just do cold brew so much better than we do over here. So yeah, if I'm in America, cold brew. If here, just plain black coffee.
Oh no, I need something sweet like caramel latte or something like that. But iced as well sometimes summer.
Is there a coffee shop that you always go to?
In terms of the chain coffee shops, I'm not like a massive fan of chains. I usually just go there because they're convenient. Like I've got, I think, 2 Costas within a 10-minute walk. There's 1 Starbucks within a 10-minute walk. I don't love them, but they're just very easy to get to, and it's almost like an office now. As in, there's one of them. I think they probably know my order in every single one. And there's one of them. I walked into it. It was probably about a couple of years ago now. But walked up to the counter and one of the staff went, "Oh, I'm really sorry." I was like, "What do you mean?" She went, "Someone sat in your seat." I was like, it's not my seat. It's fine. I'm not going to kick off.
You should go get him out of here.
Yeah,
what are you on about?
but then I do kind of walk in now. I look over to it because I pick the seat. Like you walk in one of them, you walk in the door and the counter's kind of in front of you to the left and my seat's kind of in the back corner. And I'll always walk in. The first thing is look over, and if there's someone sat there, you're like, I know I shouldn't be annoyed at this, but I kind of am. But yeah, so I tend to work from different ones, and then I've got a membership at a local health club as well, like a country house hotel with a gym. So I work from the cafe there, which that's nice. It's a change of scene. But yeah, so I go there like a few times a week because it's a bit of a further drive. But if I want to go somewhere that's a bit of a nicer environment, then I'll head out there as well.
Cool.
I've ever worked out of a coffee shop.
No, I have a couple of times. I get distracted though because like I'm a people watcher. So like, especially if it's busy, I'll just be.
I think you're either one or the other. As in, I find I get more work done because I'll often go without taking my charger. So I'm like, right, I've got to get work done because I've got no option. Otherwise, I need to charge it up. And I also think I'm self-conscious that people are going to look over. And if I'm on YouTube or watching some stupid videos, I'll think, why on earth is that 36-year-old man looking at that stuff on the internet?
I just have my headphones on just dancing.
Yeah, so it keeps me engaged and whatnot. And I find as long as you've got noise-cancelling headphones, sometimes you do get people try and talk to you, which I'm always polite about it. But then I feel really bad if it's like the local sort of old woman who's just a bit crazy but quite sweet and friendly and is obviously just a bit lonely and wants to talk to someone and doesn't understand the concept of headphones. So yeah, I'll usually have a chat for 5-10 minutes if that happens. But yeah, if it goes on for longer than that, I tend to make my excuses and go somewhere else.
I've got to go now. Yeah. Don't, because of me? Yes, because of you.
Just give her the middle finger. See you later.
See you later, Jane.